Insta360 cameras are great for creating unique shots or capturing insane stunts. I see people using these out and about more and more as time goes on. The downside to Insta360 cameras, and to be fair, all other types of 360 cameras, is that the quality of the footage they shoot doesn't really match up to, say, your phone or a GoPro or a DSLR. I'm going to show you how you can really improve the quality of your Insta360 footage. I'm going to show you two different ways. The first way does require you to use a program like Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. We're going to go into color correcting and adding more sharpness, more color, and we're going to upscale our video as well. But I'm also going to show you a way that just uses the Insta360 Studio, which is free. So if you love using these cameras for their creativity, but you're not quite happy with the quality, stay tuned. I'm going to show you what to do. So the first thing you can do before you even start worrying about any settings or shooting or editing, the first thing you need to do is clean those lenses. I mentioned this in another video I made, but I'm repeating it because it is super important. I see it all the time. People's footage looking a bit blurry, and it's because I can always tell when there's a fingerprint or some dust. So every time you touch this camera, every time you shoot, get one of these microfiber cloths ideally, but even if you have to, use your shirt or something soft and wipe those lenses clean, because it's so easy to get a fingerprint on these big bulbous lenses here. So now we need to make sure we have the right settings selected to get the best quality out of these cameras. Firstly, go into the camera settings and make sure the bitrate is set to high. Next, go into the sharpness setting and select low. Now go into the resolution settings and select the highest, 5.7K. Now the next setting that I want you to select, and this is where we get into a bit more complicated color correction and color editing, is to go into the video settings, swipe along and select log mode. Selecting the log profile will allow the camera to capture the most wide dynamic and tonal range, which allows us to add more color and adapt the style choices in a program like Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. As you can see, it does basically remove all the color from the video, which is why we have to add it back in when we do our editing, but we'll go into that in a bit. Now you've shot your videos in log mode and you're ready to start editing. So if you have Premiere Pro, which I know is a paid program, not everyone's gonna have it, but if you do and you've installed the Insta360 Premiere Pro plugin, you should be able to drag those videos straight from your camera once it's connected to your laptop or desktop, drag them straight into Premiere Pro, and they are ready to go. You'll now be able to access all of the color and editing options available in Premiere Pro. Let me go in and show you how I edit using Premiere Pro to get the best quality out of these shots. Okay, so here we are in Premiere Pro, and I have dragged my Insta360 video files into the timeline, and the program has automatically recognized it. So I've got 3 here, which I have shot in log mode, as I described before. And as you can see, it's kind of bland. Most of the color has been taken out, but this allows us to add more dynamic range and color back into the video using this section here, Lumetri color. And this is what we're going to be doing to basically really boost the quality of our videos. So let's start now adjusting the color and adding the color back in and trying to get some really good, sharp, crisp footage using this color technology. So we want to go first into basic correction, and we're going to make some basic changes. First, we're going to look at the exposure. The exposure is actually not too bad. We can basically leave that the same. We are going to want to add in some contrast because there's basically no contrast. All the contrast has been taken out. If you adjust these too much, then everything will start to look a bit unrealistic. So you are going to want to be slightly subtle with these. It's never going to be straight to 100 or down to -100, but we're going to adjust it here up to 30, I think. There we go. If you find your video slightly overexposed, then you can reduce the highlights. You can see here that brings out more details in the sky. So that's all the adjustments I'm going to do here for now, and I'm also going to up the saturation, as that will add in back in some color. But most of the changes I'm actually going to make is under the curves tab. So select curves, and you'll see this here, this RGB curves. And you'll see there's white, red, green, and blue. So we're going to go through each of these and make some adjustments in these curves. So select the white, and roughly on the top quarter, you're going to drag up and slightly out. And then we're going to do the same thing at the bottom quarter. It doesn't have to be precise, but we're basically going to make a kind of S shape, a very subtle S-shaped curve. And we're going to do this for every single one of these curves, and it will start to look a bit weird at first, but then you'll see it kind of comes together. Now this, depending on how you change these curves, will provide a different effect. So as we can see here, we've just changed the white and the red, and it's given it a kind of green tinge. And in some situations that might be acceptable, and you could just leave it. But we're going to change all of them, and you'll see that it makes everything look a lot more professional, I would say. The image quality looks better. And now you can go in and slightly adjust any of these if you want to create a certain type of effects. So you can see how very subtle movements can make a lot of difference, so you don't want to be making massive changes. Now go back into the basic correction, and then we can see how much more saturation do we need to add to make that as good as it can be. We could probably add a bit more there. And then going into the creative tab, I'm also going to add some vibrance, which will again boost the color profile as well. So this is what it looked like without any of the edits we've just done. And as we turn them back on, you'll see how much of a change it makes, particularly those curves that we did. This S curve with all of these colors has made quite a big difference. And the image looks so much better than if we'd have just shot with the camera without that log mode and without adding any of these adjustments. The standard video would not look this good, would not look this crisp. Granted, it's not as good as a GoPro or even your phone, but doing this process will boost the quality of your shot. So let's edit one more example using the same process. So once again, going into the Lumetri color, and we can make some slight adjustments in the basic correction. I'm going to add just a little bit more light in the exposure, add quite a lot of contrast up to 40, lower the highlights to reveal some details. I think we can pretty much lower the shadows just a little bit to create some more contrast, and the whites can go up a tiny bit just by 10 or to 20, and the same with the blacks going down by the same amount. Already that's added a little bit of change. But once again, going into the curves and adding those S curves, and we can make these a little bit more dramatic. Let's see what happens if we make the S's a little bit more curved than before. You don't want to do it too much, like I said, otherwise it will look quite unrealistic. So there we go, that took literally about 45 seconds, so we can see here the before and after. Turning everything on and off, we can see quite a big change there, and it definitely makes a massive difference. Now, this is actually a very quick tutorial. There are so many more things you can do. We could spend about an hour adjusting all of these little things, all of these options to create the absolute perfect possible image, but for the sake of time of this video, I'm not going to be able to do that, but you can see with just some slight adjustments how much you can change the quality of your Insta360 videos. Okay, right, so we've done our color editing. Hopefully that has shown you what is possible. It will obviously, as I said, depend on the environment in which you've shot your footage. If you want to try and get a certain kind of look, then you need to really edit, and that's where kind of getting into that color correction, it can be quite technical, and you have to have a bit of an eye for it, but it does give you the most options, that log mode, allowing you to get the most out of these cameras. But now we have to think about exporting, and that is also very important. The first thing you should do before exporting is upscale your clips to 4K. Usually when we reframe our video from an Insta360 camera, it's reframed and exported at 1080p, but you can just basically upscale that to 4K. It won't look as good as a 4K video, but it will force the program to basically add in a few more pixels, and I've tested it and it does work out sharper. It does look better than if you exported it at 1080p. If you want to get the absolute best quality, then in the export settings you should select ProRes as the file type, which will retain as much information as possible but will result in very large file sizes. If you don't want to deal with these absolutely huge file sizes, then you can stick to the standard MP4 format, and just make sure you select a bit rate of around 100 megabits per second, and that will retain as much of the quality as possible. So those are the steps I take to get the maximum quality, the best quality out of my Insta360 cameras as possible. You can see here the difference from the non-edited to the edited. I think you can see it's a pretty big difference. It's still not as good even as something my phone can shoot, or a GoPro Hero 11, or even a very basic DSLR, but those cameras can't create the amazing effects that these can. So I did mention, if you don't have Premiere Pro, there is something you can do that doesn't require this paid program. Let me take you through that now. If you're going to follow this process that doesn't use Premiere Pro, then go ahead and go back into your camera and change the color profile from log to vivid. So instead of processing your shots through Premiere Pro, you're going to drag them into the Insta360 Studio, which is free. Reframe your shots here as usual, and then apply the Color Plus option, which is at the side here. Now that should automatically add some vibrance to your footage. That will make your shots slightly more colorful and saturated, which is good because the camera's not particularly good at picking up vibrant colors. In the export options, once again, upscale the clip from 1080p to 4K, that's 3850 by 2160. And if you want to get the best quality, select ProRes, or if you don't want to deal with the huge files, select MP4, and once again, select a bitrate of at least 100 megabits per second. Even if you follow those steps with the free Insta360 Studio software, your shots will definitely look better than if you didn't follow those steps. So I hope you found that useful, guys. If you were looking to boost the quality of your Insta360 shots, they're never going to match up to, like I said, those other kinds of cameras, but the kinds of things you can do with these, I think more than makes up for the lack of quality. Now guys, if you want to know how to get those amazing shots and you want to follow some really clear tutorials, I have a video course that I have launched that shows you everything you need to know about how to get amazing shots with your Insta360 camera. I also provide in-depth tutorials on how to use the Insta360 app, the Insta360 Studio, and Premiere Pro to get those amazing shots and to get the highest quality possible. There's over 40 tutorials in this course, and I am providing it all for half price for the first 100 subscribers from YouTube. So if you want to check that out, look in the description below. You'll see a link and everything you need to know will be there. So that's it, guys. Some more Insta360 tutorials coming soon, and I'll see you then. Bye.